Welcome to your new world, a world ruled by an Alpha Panther, and a Mafia lord obsessed with her would burn entire kingdoms just to keep her.
Dakari stood in the middle of an abandoned warehouse. Crates lay split open across the floor. His men moved with precision, checking shipments and counting weapons without wasting a word. Then screaming tore through the night. Dakari didn't flinch, not even for a second. In his world, fear got you killed. Observation kept you alive. His eyes shifted toward the exit. His hand closed around his gun as he advanced with measured steps, his body staying tight to the walls for cover. He pulled the door open. Cold air rushed in. His men were already outside, weapons raised, voices cutting through the night. Dakari stepped out. His steps slowed. He rarely hesitated, and never without reason. If it had been men with guns, he would have dropped them without hesitation. But this was different. Strange. A woman lay collapsed on the ground. That wasn't what made him hesitate. It was what pushed through her fingers, something that didn't belong, even in his world of blood and violence. Claws, dark, long, lethal, where human fingers should have been. "Boss!" One of the men turned to him for instruction. Dakari didn't answer. He watched, the way a predator tracks something that doesn't belong in its territory. Then bone cracked beneath skin. Muscle twisted and reformed. The air dropped, sharp and unnatural, as if the world itself held its breath. And in seconds, a massive black panther lay where she had fallen. Silence swallowed the space. His men fell back, guns lifted, every weapon locked onto her. She lay still, eyes closed. No one fired, no one moved. Dakari studied her without shifting his stance. The panther didn't stir, didn't growl. Its breath was barely there. It lay unconscious, as if it hadn't just shaken the ground beneath them. "Boss, should we take the shot?" one of them asked. Dakari didn't answer immediately. His gaze stayed fixed on the panther as he measured distance, risk, outcome. Something like this didn't end up in his territory without reason. "Stand down." His voice stayed quiet, but it carried absolute authority. The weapons lowered slowly. Dakari moved closer. His men held their breath. Up close, the panther looked both beautiful and deadly, a danger he hadn't accounted for. She'd strayed into his territory, but now she was his. "Get her inside." He turned as he gave the order. Alpha Queen Zarya didn't wake slowly like humans. She rose in a single motion, alert and focused. Light poured into the room, too bright. She didn't flinch, didn't stretch, didn't even blink. She scanned her environment, a strange bedroom. Minimal, a white sofa. Blank walls, not a single piece of art. The scent reached her next, sandalwood and leather, and something dangerous beneath it. This was a man's space, not just any man, a predator. She looked down at herself. She was human again. Clothed, cleanly placed, no restraint marks, no force, only precision. Someone had handled her carefully. She didn't move toward the door. Instead, she listened. Footsteps moved outside in controlled rhythm, measured and disciplined. Security rotation. It mirrored her own territory, her guards, her structure. Her eyes moved through the room, corner to corner, exit to exit, mapping everything in silence. Then she spotted it, her torn dress, folded neatly across the sofa. Her memory returned in fragments. Poison, blackthorn toxin, crossing into enemy territory, a calculated risk that had failed. She exhaled slowly. She was still alive. A king-sized bed, not a cage. Then the air shifted. She smelled him before she saw him. Sandalwood and leather cut through the air, sharpening with every step, each one unhurried, measured. He walked in like everything in the room answered to him. A dark button-down shirt clung to his lean-toned frame. A leather jacket rested over it like armor. He had unreadable brown eyes and a face carved from marble. Zarya had expected coldness, fear, maybe even violence. Instead, he left the door open. His eyes met hers, studying something that shouldn't exist. Compared to the massive panther she'd become the night before, the woman standing before him now looked almost delicate. Barely 5'4", with soft features that didn't belong to something capable of tearing armed men apart. The contrast was unsettling. Zarya grabbed the torn dress from the sofa and headed for the door. "You can't leave," Dakari's voice was calm. "And who said I need your permission?" she asked, not looking back at him. Dakari slid his hands into his trouser pockets, his sharp gaze settling on her back. "You became a target the second you shifted in my territory." That stopped her for half a second. "I've been a target all my life," she said, unfazed. "My rivals have heard about you," he said quietly, eyes not leaving hers. "They'll come after you." Zarya shrugged. "They better come prepared." Dakari's gaze flicked toward the claw marks gouged deep into the wall beside the bed. "You know what they'd do to you, right?" She shrugged again. "Yes," she said calmly. "I enjoy the moment they realize hunting me was a mistake. By then, it's usually too late." Dakari looked at her. Really looked at her. It still unnerved him how someone so small could be so terrifying. "And yet you still walked into my territory. Why?" "You ask too many questions," she said dryly. "That's what keeps me alive," Dakari said quietly, standing to his full height. Zarya scoffed and brushed past him, the scent of rain and wild darkness trailing behind her. Two guards raised their weapons the moment she stepped into the hallway. Zarya moved like a storm. She snapped the first wrist. Steel hit the floor a split second later. Using the momentum, she drove the second man into the wall hard enough to crack it. Then she continued onto the compound. More men stormed in. Weapons trained on her. Zarya tore through them with terrifying precision. A strike, a twist. Another body crashed hard onto the concrete, too fast for human eyes to follow. By the time the last weapon hit the floor, Dakari was the only man left standing. Silence settled over the compound. Dakari looked at the bodies scattered around them, then at her. "Impressive," he said. Zarya crossed the distance between them without hesitation. She stopped directly in front of him and pressed her palm lightly against his cheek. "Be a good boy and open the gate," she commanded, "or you'll join them." Her eyes flicked toward his men sprawled across the ground. Dakari should have pulled her hand away. He didn't. It felt warm against his skin. Then, without thinking, his hand covered hers. "You walked into my territory," he said quietly. "That makes you mine to protect." Zarya lowered her gaze to his hand around hers. Then she removed it. "Your men are down." Her eyes swept briefly over the bodies before returning to him. "And you still think I need your protection?" Dakari's expression never shifted. "I wasn't asking permission." That stopped her, only for a second. "You aren't afraid of me?" she asked. "Most people fear my kind." "Why should I be?" Dakari replied. "If you wanted to hurt me, you would have already." The corner of her mouth twitched faintly. "Don't be too sure." Dakari stepped closer this time. "You leave now, you won't make it far." Zarya held his gaze for a long moment, then shook her head slightly. "I don't belong in cages." Dakari's eyes flicked briefly toward the gate behind her. "No one's trying to cage you." Another look passed between them. Sharp, testing. Then Zarya turned and headed for the gate. "Seems like it." Just 3 steps from freedom, her movements faltered. Her legs trembled beneath her. Dakari noticed instantly. Zarya ignored it and forced herself forward, fingers wrapping around the cold iron lock. One snap, then freedom. Dark spots blurred the edges of her vision. The world tilted sideways. Her legs gave out. She was falling fast. A hand caught her, and everything went black. When Zarya woke again, the room was dimly lit. Rain tapped softly against the windows. A cold cloth rested across her forehead. Dakari sat beside the bed, one hand holding her wrist while the other brushed lightly against her temple, checking her temperature. "You have a fever," he said calmly. "My doctor is on his way." Zarya sat up slightly. "No doctors." Dakari's sharp gaze lifted to hers. "Send for a healer instead." That caught his attention. "A healer? There's poison in my system." Dakari went still. "Poison?" Zarya closed her eyes briefly. "Long story." Dakari's expression hardened. "I have time." She studied him for a long moment, then exhaled. "Blackthorn poison," she said quietly. Dakari's expression darkened. "That should have killed you." Zarya gave a faint, tired laugh. "People like me don't die that easily." Silence settled between them again. "Tell me what happened," Dakari said. Curiosity and concern flickered in his voice, though his face stayed controlled. "The attack happened during an inspection around my provinces," she continued. "I fought them off. I thought it was over." Her jaw tightened. "Only for my own warriors to turn on me. They shot me with an arrow laced with black thorn." Dakari said nothing. He listened with undivided focus. "I killed all of them with the same arrow." Her gaze drifted toward the rain-streaked window. "Then I shifted and ran, until I ended up here." "In my territory," Dakari said quietly. Zarya met his eyes. "Yes." Silence settled again, quieter this time. Zarya studied him carefully. "Why are you being nice to me?" Dakari gave her a sharp look. Zarya let out a weak breath of amusement. "You know most people would have sold someone like me for a fortune." Her gaze darkened slightly. "Or locked me in a lab and cut me open just to understand what I am." Dakari leaned forward slightly. "Who says I'm not considering it?" A faint smirk touched his mouth. Then, unexpectedly, her hand wrapped gently around his. "Thank you," she said softly. Dakari went still. Something unfamiliar settled in his chest, but he didn't pull away. Before either of them could speak again, Zarya's head snapped toward the door. Dakari noticed the shift instantly. "What is it?" Her expression hardened. "They found me." A split second later, the lights went out. Dakari was already reaching for the gun tucked behind his back. "Stay here," he ordered, moving toward the door. "Wait!" Authority cracked through Zarya's voice, sharp enough to stop him. "I don't have time for—" "4 heartbeats," she cut in. Dakari stilled. 2 men moving through the east wing. 2 more coming from the south, she said, her gaze sweeping the dark walls. "I smell gunpowder and blades." Dakari turned fully toward her. "You're sure?" She nodded once. "And leave the lights off." Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "My night vision is excellent." Zarya pushed herself up. Dakari's jaw tightened. "You're not coming with me." "I am." The movement nearly made her stumble. He caught her arm instantly. Zarya steadied herself, then pulled free. "No. You're poisoned and barely standing." Her gaze sharpened. "I won't stand by and watch you fight my battle." Dakari exhaled once. Then cold control returned. "You're not leaving this room, and that's final." For a moment, they stared each other down. Then Dakari turned and walked out. "I want coverage on the east and south wings." His voice shifted instantly into command mode. Below them, the compound had already erupted into chaos. Boots, shouts, rain hitting concrete. Then, a voice from the dark. "Give us the woman and we'll leave quietly." Dakari crossed toward the balcony, keeping close to the wall. Why don't you come say that to my face? Silence answered. But Zarya heard more than silence. Unsteady heartbeats, movement in the shrubs. She darted out of the room, stopping beside Dakari. A sharp masculine cologne hit her nostrils. Her eyes lifted. Roof. Dakari turned. 3 o'clock. The second he turned, Zarya felt it. The shift in breathing, the tightening finger on a trigger. Dakari, move! The shot cracked. Zarya crossed the distance in a blur and slammed into him, throwing him down. The bullet tore into her shoulder. Pain exploded through her body. Dakari was already returning fire. 2 shots. A body dropped from the roof. Then the compound broke into full violence. Gunfire. His men dropped 3 attackers, but more poured in. Zarya shifted. Darkness rippled over her like liquid shadow. Bone and muscle reformed. A massive black panther landed in the center of the compound, growling. The sound froze the attackers for a fraction of a second. Tranquilizers sliced through the air. "Zarya, look out!" Dakari yelled. She advanced impossibly fast, a blur of claws and teeth. One man fell screaming, another hit concrete hard. Gunfire scattered wildly. Then, silence. Bodies lay across the rain-soaked ground. Her panther stood in the center, breathing heavily, blood darkening her shoulder. Dakari ran to her. "Zarya." She turned to look at him. "You're losing too much blood. I'm calling my doctor." She pressed one heavy paw into his hand. "No doctors." Her voice echoed inside his head, calm but strained. "Are you sure?" Dakari asked. "I'll be fine." Her panther rested its head on his chest. "Just give it a few minutes." The words brushed directly against his mind. Dakari froze. "Did you just speak to me through my mind?" She nodded. "I'll explain later." Though the shocked look remained on his face, he still held her close. He recovered, then turned to his men. "Get the first aid kit," he ordered. They moved instantly. Within minutes, the wound began sealing itself. Dakari stared, unable to believe what he was seeing. "No scar," one of his men whispered, disbelief in his voice. Her eyes snapped toward Dakari. He looked at her, awestruck. Silence followed. Later that night, rain tapped the windows. Zarya lay awake, watching Dakari asleep on the sofa. For once, he looked peaceful. The sharpness he carried was gone. He had refused the guest room. To keep watch, he'd said. The memory warmed something in her chest. Slowly, she climbed down the bed and stopped beside the sofa, studying him, then crouched and pressed a soft kiss to the cut on his jaw, the cut he got for fighting for her. Dakari's eyes opened instantly, their gazes locked, deep and searching. He caught her waist and pulled her onto his lap. Neither spoke. Neither broke eye contact. The world faded away to just the two of them, their faces barely inches away. Then his hand slid to the back of her neck, a silent question. She didn't pull away. He kissed her, slow at first, careful and testing. Then she kissed him back, fierce, unrestrained. When they broke apart, neither spoke for a second. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Better." A faint smirk. "That good, huh? You taste dangerous, and your beast approves. Very much." This time, he kissed her back without hesitation. By dawn, they were tangled together in sleep. Then the ground shook. Zarya woke up with a start, instantly alert, hundreds of heartbeats, rain and forest in the air, her pack. Dakari woke. "What the hell is going on?" She pulled the curtains open. He froze. 400 panthers stood below in perfect formation. Zarya hurried downstairs. Dakari followed. The second she stepped outside, every panther bowed. Her beta and brother Samuel stepped forward and shifted into human form. "Alpha," he breathed. "Thank the gods you're alive." Zarya nodded once. "I'm fine." Then the pack turned toward Dakari. All at once they bowed in respect. Dakari looked at Zarya. "They're thanking you," she said quietly, "for protecting their Alpha." He exhaled a low laugh. "What exactly are you, Zarya?" Something quiet passed through her expression. "I have to go." She stepped forward and hugged him. "Thank you." Dakari held her a moment longer than expected. "You're leaving?" His chest tightened. Zarya nodded. He studied her. "Will I see you again?" A brief silence fell between them. Then Zarya smiled faintly. "Take care of yourself, Dakari." Then she shifted. Her Black Panther vanished into rain, and her pack followed. The minute she arrived at the castle, her healer was summoned. "The black thorn poison is still potent in your system," the healer explained. She crushed herbs into a bowl, mixed them with water, then handed it to Zarya. "The poison slowed your healing, but your body kept you alive long enough to fight it." Zarya took the cup. "Thank you." The healer bowed before quietly taking her leave. Sleep never came easily that night. Zarya lay awake staring at the ceiling of her chambers, while rain battered softly against the castle windows. Her beast was restless, unsettled. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dakari. His voice, his face, his lips on hers. The way he had looked at her without fear. The way he had protected her without hesitation. A quiet knock sounded at the door before it creaked open. Samuel stepped inside. The moment he saw her awake, a knowing smile touched his face. "You're thinking about him again?" Zarya scoffed softly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" Samuel asked, amused. "You've been pacing all night." Zarya said nothing. Samuel crossed his arms. "You should just go to him." Her gaze hardened instantly. "I have responsibilities. And? A man will only make me weak." For once, Samuel didn't tease her. He only lifted both hands in surrender. "Whatever you say, Alpha." The next morning, steel clashed loudly across the training grounds. Zarya sparred against 3 warriors at once. Fast, precise, deadly. One strike sent a warrior crashing into the dirt. Another hit the ground moments later. Then, pain exploded through her ribcage, sharp enough to stop her cold. A sharp breath escaped her as her hand clutched her side. Samuel noticed instantly. "Alpha?" But Zarya barely heard him. The pain wasn't hers. Dakari. Something was wrong, very wrong. Her head turned toward the distant forest. Fear slammed into her chest hard enough to spike her pulse. That alone terrified her. Because Zarya never gets terrified. Through the pack bond, her voice rang sharply inside Samuel's mind. "Dakari needs me." Samuel's expression darkened immediately. "No, he needs us." He grabbed the reins of a bay horse in one swift motion. "I'm coming with the warriors." "Too dangerous," Zarya shot back through the bond. "I'll scout ahead first. If I need help, I'll call for the warriors." Samuel swung onto the horse. "I'm coming with you. I almost lost you once, sis. I'm not letting that happen again." Zarya stared at him for a moment before exhaling sharply. "Fine." Moments later, they disappeared into the forest. But the deeper they moved into Dakari's territory, the more wrong everything felt. Too quiet. Too empty. No scent trails, no movement. Not even the smell of rain touched the air. Zarya slowed abruptly. Samuel glanced toward her. "What is it?" Her eyes narrowed. "There's no smell." The words came out colder than ice. Impossible. The forest should have been overflowing with scents. Earth, rain, animals, humans. Instead, nothing. A cold feeling slid slowly down her spine. "Let's head back," Samuel said quietly. "Something is seriously wrong." Zarya nodded once. "I agree." They turned to retreat. Then they saw him. Dakari stood on the far side of the clearing, blood running down one side of his face. A gun pressed hard against his neck. The second their eyes met, something twisted fiercely inside her chest. But Dakari wasn't scared. He was furious. "Go back!" he shouted. "Run!" Dakari roared. But it was too late. A violent hiss erupted through the trees. Chemical smoke exploded into the air around them. Samuel cursed instantly. Heavy iron nets and reinforced cages crashed from above. Zarya and Samuel leapt apart. Tranquilizer darts sliced through the air. Zarya lunged sideways, claws ripping through one of the nets instantly. But another dropped behind it, then another. Layer after layer. Built specifically for her. Gunfire exploded through the forest. Samuel shifted mid-air with a roar, tearing into the nearest attackers. Screams echoed through the trees. Zarya shifted partially, bones cracking, black claws bursting through her fingertips. Then the chemical hit her lungs. Pain slammed through her instantly. Her movements faltered as a bronze knife sank into her side. Then sedatives followed. "Samuel, go. Now," she commanded, using the last of her strength. But silence answered her. No response through the pack bond. No presence. Nothing. Her enemies had prepared for everything. A calm voice echoed through the darkness. "Careful with the Alpha." More figures emerged from the trees, armed, masked, watching her like hunters circling a trapped god. Zarya's breathing grew heavier. Rage burned beneath her skin. Across the clearing, Dakari fought hard enough to break one guard's nose despite the men restraining him. "Touch her, and I'll kill every last one of you." A gun slammed harder against his neck. "Stand down." Dakari ignored the warning completely. His eyes stayed locked on Zarya. "Don't let them take you." But her legs were already weakening. The sedatives spread too fast. Zarya dropped to one knee. The entire forest fell silent. The last thing she heard was Dakari screaming her name. Then darkness swallowed her whole. Dakari woke up in the hospital to find a nurse replacing an empty IV bag. His gaze dropped to his side. The gunshot wound had already been stitched. He yanked the IV from his arm and swung out of bed. "Sir, you can't leave yet. Your treatment isn't finished," the nurse said. He strode out without even sparing her a glance. His men were already waiting in the hallway. "Boss, are you okay?" his second-in-command asked. Dakari didn't slow. "Get the Blood Kings on the line. We have work to do." The Blood King Syndicate owned the city. Nothing moved without their permission. Gabriel was already making the call. 2 hours later. Dakari stood in the security room of his estate. Nyx Dominion's territory lit up across the screen. Red zones, security layers, movement grids. Then the basement appeared. Zarya was locked inside a bronze cage in human form, weak, dishevelled. Dakari slammed his hand against the table. "That's her." Peter, head of the Blood King Syndicate, moved closer to the screen. Dakari nodded once. Silence followed. Then John, Peter's younger brother, spoke. "We can extract her." Dakari turned instantly. "Then let's do it." Peter's voice cut through the room. "Not that easy." Dakari's jaw tightened. "Explain." Peter pointed toward the display. "Nyx Dominion is layered. 3 rings of security, motion sensors, thermal tracking, scent blockers." Dakari frowned. "Scent blockers?" "They're expecting us," Peter said calmly. Dakari exhaled slowly. "Then we break through it." John spoke again. "Bronze containment complicates things." Dakari's head snapped toward him. "She's inside bronze." "Yes." "It weakens shifters," John added. "Panthers especially." Dakari went still. "How long?" Peter answered this time. "Minutes at first. It gets worse with longer exposure." Dakari's hands curled into fists. Peter touched his earpiece. "Get antidotes ready." "Already in motion," an agent replied. Peter looked back at Dakari. "We wait for their blind spot. 10-minute rotation window." Dakari's patience snapped thin. I'm ready, let's move. Peter held his gaze evenly. If we're doing this, you need a clear head. Being agitated won't help her. Dakari exhaled sharply and rubbed a hand over his face. He was always in control, but this, whatever this was, he couldn't explain it. Dakari turned his back to the others and took a steady breath. Then he straightened. His composure slid back into place. Gear up, he commanded, his voice a quiet authority. Men reached for tactical armor. Weapons were checked. Loaded. Ready. Dakari turned toward the door. Let's move. Samuel stood in the castle grounds, a graze cutting across his arm. Richard Abeta rushed toward him. Are you okay? He asked quickly. Where is Alpha Queen Zarya? Samuel didn't slow. Prepare the warriors, he said. Richard nodded once and immediately moved to obey. By midnight, Samuel and the warriors were in position, armored, silent, hidden behind the tree line opposite Nick's Dominion territory. Samuel lifted his earpiece. Dakari, he said, are you and your men in position? Yes, Dakari responded. We move in 5. Samuel and the warriors moved ahead, sticking to the shadows. When they reached the back entrance of Nick's Dominion estate, Samuel stopped abruptly. The air smelled wrong, too clean, too controlled, and in a crime lord's territory, that was never a good sign. Samuel touched his earpiece. It's a decoy, he warned quietly. They're leading us into an ambush. He paused. West side instead. Less security. Copy, Dakari replied instantly. Samuel turned toward the warriors. Hold the perimeter. Nobody gets in or out unless I say so. The warriors spread into the tree line immediately. Samuel exchanged a determined look with Dakari before moving. They entered the estate. They slipped through blind spots and darkness with careful precision until they reached the basement level. Rust, sweat, bronze. The scents hit Samuel instantly. This was the place. He reached for the basement door. Stop. Zarya's voice slammed through both their minds. Dakari froze beside him. It's a trap, she warned weakly. How many? Dakari asked calmly. 12 close, Zarya whispered. More upstairs. Samuel scanned the corridor. The safest route? Left corridor, blind spot for 7 seconds. Dakari looked toward Samuel. Samuel nodded once. Go, he ordered urgently. I'll hold them off. Dakari pushed through the basement side door alone. Gunshots erupted through the walls. Dakari, Zarya shouted. He dropped low and crawled toward the bronze cage. Then he saw her, weak, ashen. Relief hit him hard enough to tighten his chest. Their eyes locked. Zarya gripped the bronze bars hard enough to rattle the cage. His chest tightened at how helpless she looked. Then the back door flew open. Don Danjuma stepped inside slowly. 2 armed guards flanked him. Well, he smirked, look who we have here. This is between us, Dakari said coldly. Let her go. Danjuma laughed softly. When you took my territories, did you let them go? Dakari's jaw tightened. Danjuma stepped closer to the cage. Only a fool lets go of something this valuable, he said casually. Dakari's hands formed to fists. She's still a person. You don't have to do this. Wow. Look at your face. His smirk widened. You really do care about her. Dakari's eyes darkened dangerously. I'd enjoy watching you break piece by piece, Danjuma said softly. Watching helplessly as I turn her into a weapon. Let her go. I'm the one you want. Danjuma laughed. Too late, Dakari. Too late. Take him, he ordered. Dakari threw a silver bracelet toward Zarya. She caught it. A bullet tore through Dakari's shoulder. He hit the ground hard. Dakari! Zarya clasped the bracelet around her wrist. The sliver in the bracelet neutralized the bronze. Strength exploded through her body like e-lightning. She snapped the cage in half. A roar ripped through the basement as she shifted into her Panther. Bronze bullets and tranquilizers darted the air. But she was faster. She tore through the guards. Blood, screams. They dropped one after another. Danjuma stumbled backward in terror. Zarya's glowing eyes locked onto him. He fled. Dakari was losing too much blood. So, she let Danjuma go for now. She lifted him into her arms. Then she ran. Fast enough to become a blur through the collapsing estate. But the moment she reached outside, she halted. Samuel and the warriors were still fighting. Gunfire thundered through the forest. Bodies moved through smoke and darkness. Her warriors, her people. Guilt twisted inside her chest. She couldn't leave them behind. She was their alpha. Then Samuel's voice slammed through the bond. "Get him out of here, Zarya." She hesitated. Dakari's blood soaked against her arms. Zarya swallowed hard. "I'll come back," she promised through the bond. Then she ran. Bullets and darts tore through the forest behind her, but she moved too fast to hit. What should have taken over an hour took only 20 minutes. The moment she reached the castle gates, Richard rushed forward. "Get a doctor." "Now," she ordered sharply. Richard immediately sprinted away. Zarya carried Dakari to her chambers and carefully laid him on the bed. Blood covered his shirt. His skin looked pale beneath the dim light. She ripped the fabric away from the wound and wrapped his shoulder tightly to slow the bleeding. Dakari barely moved. His breathing was shallow, too shallow. Fear clawed at her chest. Zarya pressed trembling fingers against his pulse. Weak. "Stay with me, Dakari." She touched his cheek gently. Nothing. Her throat tightened. "The doctor is on his way," she whispered. She wasn't sure whether she was trying to comfort him or herself. Zarya took his hand, then looked at him and said softly, "Do you know the only reason I survived that cage?" Her voice cracked slightly. "You. Dakari. Because of you." Silence filled the room. "So stay with me," she whispered. "Please." Weakly, Dakari's fingers curled around hers. Barely there, but enough. Relief washed through her. Then, the doctor hurried inside. Hours later. The bullet had been removed. A blood bag hung beside the bed, flowing through the vein in Dakari's arm. His eyes fluttered open slowly. Zarya immediately rose from the sofa and rushed toward him. The tension left her face. "Thank the gods," she breathed. "You scared me." Dakari lifted a weak hand to her cheek. "I'm sorry." "How do you feel?" she asked softly. "Better." Then his expression shifted. "Samuel?" "I had to leave him behind." Dakari immediately tried to sit up. "We need to go back." Zarya gently pushed him down. "He's alive," she assured him. "I can feel him through the bond. They're on their way back." Dakari exhaled slowly in relief. Moments later, Samuel burst into the room. "Is he okay?" "I'm fine," Dakari muttered. Samuel stepped beside the bed. "Thank you," he said quietly. Dakari gave him a weak smile. Then Samuel turned and pulled Zarya into a tight hug. "Glad you're home, sis." "I was so worried." Then he left the room quietly. Dakari looked at Zarya for a long moment. "Then, when this is all over, would you go on a date with me?" Zarya smiled softly. "Yes." She leaned down and kissed him. Dakari pulled her gently onto the bed beside him and wrapped an arm around her waist. "I haven't even showered yet," she murmured against his lips. "I don't care," he replied softly, kissing her neck. Her laughter filled the room, and for the first time in a long time, Dakari smiled.